So, first of all, over to you, Mike. By the way, can we attempt to restrain ourselves to about 3 minutes?
Yeah, I will try. I'm Mike Hope. I'm a part of your party group in Ipswich, and I managed to get. I was the only one of uh, our local group who managed to get to the Norwich Regional Assembly on Sunday. There is a further Eastern Region Assembly on the 25th in Colchester, and I think quite a few comrades are going there. Just to give some feedback on that, there were about 200 plus people, quite far and wide, Peterborough, Northampton, Bedfordshire, etc., as well as sort of, nearer East Anglia. It was kind of generally good natured. There were no fights. Um, there were, uh, I mean, the means we were enabled through small groups to whistle stop our way through the four documents. And some of the things that came out are slightly troubling, well, considerably troubling in some cases. I mean, first of all, I think political statement, the programme, to me, there isn't a party without a programme, and it's very thin on the ground. And there are many things which are omitted. Uh, it's mentioned in some of the other documents that other parts of what's now the UK, Wales, Scotland, I'm not even sure that the north of Ireland is mentioned. However, can have their own self-organized groups, and there is some lip service to self-determination. But there isn't any real challenge to the union, which personally, I think is really important. Um, In addition, in the discussion around it being a party based in the working class, there was quite a lot of pushback from quite a few people, not just in my discussion group, but coming from others about, oh, we can't use the word working class, it is old-fashioned, etc. It will not appeal to the people we need to be able to get involved. Of course, we understand it, but it's just really rather patronizing stuff. The counter argument, which was part of, is that the working class is constantly changing. And just because we have barristers and academics and, senior doctors now as part of the working class, as well as people in the gig economy and people who are members of the so-called pop-up unions. And sex workers, it's all part of the working class, and it changes and it will continue to change. And there is an element here which wasn't emphasized really much at all about political education. Um, there was significant concerns about the sort of temporary, inverted commas, management by the group of independent MPs, one of whom I understand claims he isn't even a socialist. So why quite what his role is in it, I do not know. And they are all hymns. That's another thing. There was scarcely a mention of Zara. There was no mention whatsoever of climate. And given the background to all of this, it's very important. There was obviously Gaza and genocide by Israel was ever present, and it needed to be. Um, just two other things to say. First of all, that night, while it was still fresh, I wrote something for my group and also for I'm part of the Republican Labour Education Forum, so I wrote it for both of them really. And I'll put my email in the chat, and if people want to contact me, I'll send it to them. It's not anybody's property, so that goes into some of the other issues a bit more. But one thing that was announced right at the end is that there is going to be a means whereby every member can have their say, allegedly, uh, on the four documents. And it is via your party comrades.uk/feedback. I'll put that in the chat as well. And, I suggest we use that button quite a lot.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mike, for that valuable feedback. Thanks a lot. I've got Ian Drummond, then Nigel Smith, then Leslie Mahmood, then Matthew Jones.
All right, thanks. Thanks for that very valuable whistle-stop tour of the document, Eric. Just one final thing I'd like to add that I thought was a bit problematic was about the election timetables, saying that at one point that it also destewarded by the Independent Alliance MPs and leaving Holyrood and Wales blank. Which is maybe a good sign for autonomy. But with the elections coming up here, I think we'll have to get our skates on. Just a quick aside to Mike, maybe the challenge to the union that I'd actually approve of is us not organising in the north of Ireland, though, of course, that's not unique to us. I think only the Tories from the mainland do. But I'd also like to just feed in and ask Eric about something that I came across when I was at the World Transformed the week past last weekend, that six democratic factions came together in public in real time at one of the assemblies there and announced this joint kind of minimum programme for democracy in your party. The two big fish in that being the Democratic Bloc and the Democratic Socialists of your party. And it's a minimum programme. Some of the other groups are already are saying that they can go beyond it, as we probably would ourselves. But I kind of seized the initiative and got up and mentioned the CMWP and the platform that you're one of the key signatories of with Ken Loach and Naomi. As another democratic group that has a lot of similar ideas that hopefully we could be doing joint work with them on. I spoke to one of the DemSoc leading figures, and I think he said that he was in touch with Naomi or about to be. So I was hoping she'd be here today for me to ask her about that, but you might know too, and just your thoughts on working with those other forces in roughly the same direction. And good luck to Naomi. I think from all of us in the meeting with Sarah, I don't know exactly what it's about, but hopefully something good will come of it. So yeah, those are my two main initial questions. And just to feed in about Scotland as well, that time's running out for Holyrood, but I think it's very important to do. And we've got our assemblies coming up a wee bit later, but in the next few weeks. And yeah, I think it's important that we get your party right. We don't want the Greens to eat our lunch, as it were. Yeah, because we need a real socialist alternative, and I'm quite happy about some of the hard lines Sarah's been drawing about where we can unite with them on certain issues, but that we are anti-NATO and more consistently anti-war, for example. But those are the two main questions about the MP stewarding selections and selections in Holyrood and Wales, especially since those are national elections coming up, and about the democratic groups working together. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, comrade. Thanks, Ian. Next, Nigel Smith.
Yes, I like some of the sentiments behind the documents and the sentiments within the statement, the one-page statement. However, the fact that it doesn't mention climate change, as Mike points out, is absolutely horrific. Who wrote this? I'd like to know how a document as important and significant as this could go out without a mention of climate change. Now, that's remarkable. So that shows a gap in understanding of the issues. It's not just an accident. These things are not accidental. These things happen because people have taken their eyes off issues, and they've taken their eyes off the climate. It's obvious. So that's really quite shocking. I like some of the stuff about, the working class and socialism and mentions of those things, as people have said. I don't want to be too negative, but that's a big, big hole to get to explain themselves out of. The other is the use of language, comrades. This is neoliberal, Stalinist language. We're talking about central executive, what is it? CEC, Central Executive Committee, central, bad, executive, bad, committee, well, fair enough. So what does that mean? Does that mean London? What does it mean? It's really bad, comrades. The using such terms to describe, I mean, even the term leader, comrades, I have problems with that. Spokesperson or spokespeople, please. These are big problems. These are really major problems. Northern Ireland, just to clarify, that's difficult to include because of complicated political reasons. So, without having Mike, that's a good question, but that is complicated, Northern Ireland. I think what a lot of this shows, comrades, is a lack of belief in the class and a lack of confidence and a separation of, as they see it, the tops in the organisation from the actual people in the organisation, the majority of the people in the organisation, the people who are going to do the actual work. And I'm sorry, it seems, I've never been a member of the Labour Party, but it seems to reflect Labour Party practice and Labour Party structure very much. So yeah, there are some good things in it, and I know I'm sounding very negative, but actually these are significant problems and significant areas we have to challenge. The language and the top-down structure and the fact that climate change isn't mentioned, we have to challenge those very directly and demand to know the reasons for their approach and their language and for the omission of the climate change issue from their principal document. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks, Nigel. I'm going to call Leslie Mahmood next, followed by Matthew Jones, followed by Trish O'Hara. They're the only people indicating at the minute. Leslie, you're muted. Leslie?
I've just realised, thanks. Thanks, yeah. I don't want to repeat what everyone said, and obviously there are some positives, but I do agree with a lot of the points that have been raised. To me, it seems very heavy on top-down organisation and organisational stuff, and quite thin on politics and principles. And I know policies are to be discussed, but again, it's not quite clear, how that's going to be managed at a conference of 13,000 people. But a couple of specific points that I do feel strongly about. One, I completely agree with the comrade who just said it should be two spokespeople, two co-spokespeople. Leader, does have that certain twang about it, but it should be two people. And I really felt quite angry when I saw that, because I felt that was like pushing Zara out of the picture. And we need a balance of, long-toothed people in the Labour movement and newer, but tried and tested, enthusiastic, and really put in a sharp position on politics in the way that Zara has. So I feel very wary about that anyway. But on principle, it should be two co-leaders, and it should be a man and it should be a woman. And if it's not Jeremy and Zara, which could be in the future, but certainly I feel that's really pushing one person out the picture. And secondly, for me, it's not clear what the meaning of gender balance on this CEC or executive or whatever you want to call it. It's not very clear. And the other phrase about balance, let's be, we should be specific. We should either say 50-50 or whatever, but it needs to be specific. And, you know, I think Eric's made the point on a lot of things. One of the other things that concerns me is distribution of resources. I think it's vital that local and area branches have the resources to produce the leaflets, organise the meetings, organise, you know, rallies, etc., do all the slogging and footwork out in the community with proper resources. And I won't go into it in detail, but I have had experience where the central body wanted control of all the finance and a tiny fraction go into local areas. And that is something I completely fundamentally disagree with. The you know, yes, people, you know, there needs to be an office and people, etc. But you know, there's got to be money for activity. That's the key thing. And again, I would agree with the comrade. There's a danger here if we just have you know, London-centric handful of people appointed. Again, I'm totally opposed to that. And I would echo the comment that the comrades made about climate. It has actually got one word, which obviously is not good enough. And I think the other thing is there's not a recognition, you know, that women are 50% of the population. They've borne most of austerity and cuts. Life expectancy for working class people has gone down, but biggest of all of working class women, and biggest of all of maybe if you live a bit longer, but you live in worse health. So, you know, working class women and black women are right down the bottom of the pile, and there needs to be more recognition of that, both in the organisation and the politics as well. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot, Leslie. Matt, unmute yourself.
Yeah, if I can unmute myself, people might be able to hear me. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things in this. I mean, the more we read it, the worse it gets, really. And I think that, I mean, obviously we need to get the thing up and running, but in terms of, I mean, I think, you know, the first question is money, obviously. Yeah, I mean, what this appears, I mean, the problem is this whole thing stinks to the Labour Party and the methodology of the Labour Party, you know, and that all money shall go to the centre. And basically, everybody else shall starve unless the centre likes them, you know, which has always been the method of control. You know, or one of the methods of control is, in fact, obviously, all the, you know, there's no control of money outside the centre. So I mean, really, you're talking about, you know, things like a distribution of income to the likes of branches and regions, and even, you know, national. I mean, if you look here in Scotland, I mean, clearly the problem is, I mean, you know, the Scottish Labour Party has always been accused of being the branch office and the famous thing. And of course, the reason why, of course, is it hasn't got any money, and it really relies on money from effectively from London, and therefore London calls the tune. And so, you know, the thing is, there needs to be a distribution of money, and there needs to be ability of, you know, the branches to, if necessary, for the branches and so on, and regions and you know, country Scotland and Wales to actually employ their own staff, not have them appointed from London, you know, or not have to rely on money from London. So the other thing, you know, again, I mean, in terms of saying, well, you know, you're going to appoint a load of staff, but they're all going to be appointed by the General Secretary, for Christ's sake, you know, where's the accountability in that? And then, of course, it then comes into the point where they say, okay, well, they're going to start drawing up policies. And again, that's going to be that's going to be run by the General Secretary. Well, it's ridiculous. I mean, surely, you know, the drawing up a policy should be by groups of members. And we should be asking members to start writing policy, you know, in those terms. And so it involves a far larger number of people. And it means, you know, that, you know, you actually have some kind of accountability. At the same time, we're looking at some really quite major crises of even the system we got. I mean, you know, something like a third of all the councils in England, for instance, are on point of being declared bankrupt and going into Section 114. You know, what's supposed to be our alternative? You know, again, you can say the same in Scotland. I mean, you know, councils are on their knees. You know, so that whole question becomes critical, and will become more critical in the next year or two as well. And okay, that is in terms of it, that needs to be developed. But I think it's also about as I say, the key is who actually runs this thing, and the way that they set it up is effectively by a small central office and the general secretary, and we should absolutely be against any of that. And that, as I say, there should be devolution of resource and money, and that, policy, etc., should be in the hands of the members and not in the hands of some kind of remote central structure, because obviously it's ridiculous, and it's just it's a hangover from the Labour Party. So in those terms, I'm not really. I think with other people, not very impressed. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Over to you, Trish. Unmute yourself, please, Trish. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Nice to see all your lovely faces. Okay, I haven't got very much to say because I have to admit I haven't read the whole document yet. I've read bits of it, but I really want to say that there's something odd about the climate not being mentioned. It would indicate to me that this is happening around Corbyn and he's not being as involved as perhaps we would expect, because he's he walks the walk and talks the talk of climate and always has. So it seems odd to me that it's not in the document, because that indicates to me that a lot of advisors are doing this and not much Corbyn. I also think a couple of other things. The other one is, why is the one leader, even one or two, why have they? We can only say it's self-appointed for an interim time, right. And we have to accept that actually neither of them might be voted in, neither Corbyn nor Zara Sultana, although I do accept that they need to be high profile to start with, because it's them that's galvanised the people. So I think it needs to use the word interim or custody, a bit more obvious, that really, whether it's leader or spokesperson. I like the idea of it being two as well. And I'm not sure that it would be either of those two, maybe. That's the truth of it. I'm very concerned. This sharing of resources is really important, but I think what's really important is the sharing of data. The truth is, in our local areas, we don't know who members are. They're holding, that's a bit like Landsman did with Momentum. They're holding the power because they're holding who's who. And that makes me very nervous. I think we should already have had some sort of email locally to people to say, here's some more people in your area. That's only an algorithm on a computer program that could do that could perhaps with some consent by asking you, do you mind if we put your name on a list of local people? We need to know who our members are, not just interested people, but the people like the meeting I went to. I've been to one, and we've got another one in Newham. Well, we've got one in Newham tomorrow and then perhaps another one next week. But I went to one in a neighbouring borough in London. I'm one of those terrible South people. But I went to one. It was really well attended. It was over 200 along with the people online, and about 180 in the room, or 170 in the room. And it was really well attended. But not everyone were paid up members. Some had shown an interest, and they were all welcome, and it was great. We did some great discussion. But we didn't know who each other were, and that made me really concerned. And I think the same's going to happen in Newham, where I live. And I think the other thing that I want to say, and last point, sorry to go on, is I think with an organisation, we don't have people that you employ running the business. What you have is you have people who work for the party, not run the party, work for the party. They should be, I would say, instead of having parties where, I don't know, the McSweeneys take over, we can see what Cummings and McSweeney do, and it was Evans, what they're all up to, running the party, listening to lobbyists. We don't want spads, I would suggest. And I would suggest we don't want people running for the party. We want people applying for a job that's advertised, and a job that is where there's a panel of people that we've elected who decide who to employ from the people that have applied based on their skills, and based on whether they are members or not is not necessarily something I hadn't thought about. I think they could be members or not, but they need to be skilled workers who work for us. They don't run anyone. They work for us. It means if they do something wrong, we flipping fire them. Straightforward. That's how we run organisations. People work for you. They don't run it. I don't want these people to run it. And who are these alliance people? They're great on Palestine. Are they socialists? I don't know. I haven't voted for them. I don't want them having my data. I don't want them running, overseeing, having an address book or anything. They're not voted by us. They're not part of us. until they're voted. They can join like any other member. That's how I see it. I'm sorry, I'm being a bit loud.
Comrade, it's a pleasure to listen to you. Now, we got nobody else indicating. Nigel, your hand went up briefly. Ian wants to come in. Ian? And then Roger. You're muted, Ian.
Well, it was an applause. It was an applause.
It was a thumbs up.
Oh, right. That was an applause. You don't want to say anything?
Not yet. Maybe
this
I'll
must be a
come back.
first. All right. Over then to Roger Silverman.
Okay, thanks, Comrades. I wasn't going to speak, but just one or two things just to chip into the discussion, which is already a very positive and very lively discussion. I think, obviously, the first thing we have to say is it's only a few weeks that we were still at a stage where we were saying, it's time they built something, it's time something went forward, it's time we built this party. Things are moving very, very fast. We've got to a situation now where we should really celebrate that we have a party to talk about. Yes, all these criticisms are absolutely justified. I completely agree with all of them. But look what a huge stride forward we're taking, that we now have a party about which to complain the rules of and the structure of, because before there was just a completely empty vacuum, which was just crying out loud to be filled by something, by anything. But having said that, I mean, there are things, very, very strong points that we can say. One of the reasons, I think, why there's this ferment of debate and criticism and ideas coming up, I think part of that is why we have, with the structure of the party as it's presented now, it seems to be very, very much dominated at the top by fear of what the working class, of what the workers in the party could make of it, of how it could surpass them, outpace them, overwhelm them, and go forward beyond the strictures. For instance, this idea of the independent MPs being a kind of interim leadership, I mean, that is crucially important. Who appointed them? You could say, okay, Jeremy and Zara, we can take it that they would be appointed overwhelmingly by the huge mass, probably by every member of the new party. But these MPs who simply represented, really, I have to say it smacks of a communal tendency, of a communal group of Muslims who are upset by the Gaza war, obviously quite rightly, and we agree with them and salute them that they stood out on that. But on other issues, they have no record of having anything to do with the working class or anything to do with socialist ideas, still less so. In fact, I understand, I haven't heard this contradicted, but I've heard several times that one of the MPs was in favour of bringing troops in to break the Birmingham bin strike. Well, we don't want somebody like that anywhere near a new party, a party of the working class. Secondly, that it is, as Comrades have said, it has to be a party of the working class, proudly saying so. And that means, and by the way, all this, the nonsense that people say, oh yeah, but what about the unemployed, and what about pensioners, and what about disabled people, and so on. Look, disabled people are disabled workers. Pensioners are retired workers. The youth are future workers. I mean, this is the unemployed workers are unemployed workers. They're all part of the working class. That's why it's called the working class. We're not saying only people in jobs. The working class is the overwhelming mass of society. And as some comrades have said already today, that includes now lawyers, doctors, barristers, university lecturers, all of whom have been involved in massive strikes in the recent period. Then there's the question of sortition. Now, sortition, I mean, is absolutely explicitly undemocratic. It's saying that democracy isn't a good idea because the kind of people who get elected are the ones who really have more confidence, have more experience, are better speakers, who've got clearer ideas and so on. Well, what's wrong with that? It would have been, they say, oh, well, it was so difficult to organise. It's not difficult at all. When you've got 800,000 people in a week signing up, to join to express an interest in the formation of a new party, and that makes it bigger, potentially a bigger party than the membership of all the other parties put together, and then by quite a long distance. Then what that means is it's not difficult at all to organise a party. You can do it in a couple of weeks. All you need to do is say you somehow you disseminate the names and the contact details of the people who signed up, and you say in each area, get together and organise yourselves, form branches, elect delegates, and there we are. And then send them to a national conference, and not sort of 4 half-day national conferences with a completely different composition of being only selected by lottery and at random anyway. You could say, look, delegates to come to a conference to hammer out the name, the leadership, the structure, the constitution, the policies, the manifesto, everything. It can be. It could have been done in a matter of weeks. So I think we have to say, let's nevertheless, despite of all of this, we have to take the dynamics of the party out of the leadership, which is afraid to let it really develop itself, and we have to say, make of this party what it so nearly has become already, to turn it into a really democratic forum and a democratic sort of parliament of the masses, which can really fight for a new society. And I think that's the message that we have to give out, that this is an opportunity which is too precious to allow to slip from our fingers.
Oh, thank you, Roger. Thank you. I think you're getting lots of claps for that. Okay, over to Nora. You're mute. Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Yeah, thank you. I've got a few points to make, and I've calmed down now. I'm not so cross about the whole thing. Firstly, the whole process that we're faced with excludes people. So how they say that everybody in the whole party as members are involved, they're lying. First of all, it excludes people because everything so far, membership, application, communication, involvement, is all online. And 1 in 8 people nationally on either not online, or if they are online, they're not able to negotiate the online systems. They're not savvy, tech savvy, and they don't go online because of that reason. And the language, Nigel said this before, but it excludes people. I've worked in the community a long time, involving people, and if you're going to do a document, it's got to be plain English, short sentences, A does B, that sort of setup, and long waffly sentences people won't read, particularly if there's a long paragraph of them. They're not reaching the people on the streets by such wiffly waffly documents. The timing of the regional assemblies does not allow what the technical term for involvement in such things is deliberative discussion. Deliberative discussion means that everybody can have their say about everything that they're being considered and come to a conclusion jointly. That's not possible in 4 hours with 4 documents and lots of moving about in small and larger groups. And there doesn't seem to be anybody at national level accountable for all this. They obviously have no idea how to work with large groups and involve them. They're using the commercial methods, which is like the pollsters do, where they just take a few comments and a few people, and that's what the sortition does, where they select people and ask them some questions on what they've already decided and as to whether they agree or not. It's called consultation. It's not anything to do with involvement or membership control. And I've got a question for everybody. I haven't managed to read all the documents, but what I have read, I've not been impressed with. that it does include things, it does include good things, but not enough of them, and not clearly enough that everybody understands exactly what they're talking about. The fact that these amendments are going to be made on the founding conference, we were told at the beginning of the process that the founding conference would end the current leadership and the current organisation, and a new one would start. When are the amendments going to be agreed, and when do the amendment documents become party procedures and party protocols, to use the technical terms? And what is going to happen with that gap between all the months of December, January, February, and March? Who's going to run the show? Are they going to be accountable to the rest of us? What process is there in these documents that allow us to hold them to account in those 4 months? If anybody knows, who's read the documents in detail, please let me know, because we've got a local meeting tomorrow and I'm supposed to be leading off on them.
Okay, thanks, Nora. Two more. I can see two more people indicating. Nigel and then Matt Jones. Nigel Smith next.
Yeah, very briefly. On sortition, we discussed that in Calderdale. I'm from Calderdale. Sortition versus delegate structure. And the guy who did the lead off on sortition is a massive advocate of sortition. But he said the way it's being used in your party is ridiculous. It can't be used like that. They don't understand what sortition is for. It's for a much more specific function. And he explained very well. So, he was very concerned about that, even though he's a massive fan of sortition. And the other thing that's missing, comrades, and I must mention this, is a code of conduct of some description. It's all very well saying be nice to each other in meetings, but one of the first things any organisation of this scale needs is a code of conduct. And that is really urgent, because issues are going to arise and they will need to be dealt with in a proper, rounded out way. So I thought I'd mention that because I forgot to mention that before.
Okay, thanks, Nigel. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nigel's absolutely right, and that also, of course, is part of the fact that the proposed constitution actually has virtually no detail, and it's unworkable. Really, it can't work on the basis of how the thing will actually function, or indeed to deal with the issues that will come up. I mean, if you've got a mass organisation in which you've got hundreds of thousands of people, or should have, then obviously it's going to have one detail how the thing actually works. I mean, there's nothing in it about the actual operation of branches or regional organizations or indeed countries or any of these sort of different levels or in terms of holding councillors accountable or MPs accountable, any of this sort of stuff. And none of these key issues are even mentioned. And then, of course, as Nigel has said, then becomes a question of the code of conduct and the methods that will be employed by the organisation in order to function. And none of that is in there. And so, I mean, in those terms, it's just completely deficient. I think there's a certain thing. Okay, well, any constitution will get bigger and bigger as the organisation, acquires, experience and so on, and goes through some stuff and so on, which may or may not be pleasant. But this thing is just not fit for purpose. In those terms. And I think the other thing in terms of also, of course, as Trish has mentioned, I mean, the other problem, of course, is we haven't actually had any system of getting hold of or being able to use this data. The fact that we've signed up, 800,000 people, right, or more, and most people, in terms of those people trying to organise on the ground, have had no access to that at all. They've just had GDPR. That's it. And the GDPR actually, of course, doesn't restrict the actual use of data. All it does is says, well, if you've got data, then you've got to keep it securely and hold it for the purpose to which it was given. That doesn't mean you just deny people the access to the bloody thing. I mean, if you look at the way that commercially, of course, is that the data is distributed all the time. Organizations will distribute millions of records of data every day. So there's a question of the use of data. But I mean, what it means, of course, is you've got, say, where we are in Glasgow, there's probably at least 20,000 people have signed up, but we haven't had any chance to get hold of any of them, apart from a few hundred people. And this is going to be the other problem with the regional assemblies, of course, is that because they're actually, these things, we don't have the access to the data, and we can't get a big enough venue to actually accommodate what you should get. You should be looking at thousands of people. If you're going to hold a meeting in Glasgow, I mean, effectively that's Glasgow plus west of Scotland, down to the borders. I mean, it's a huge hinterland you're looking at. You're going to have to, to do that properly, you need a hall that holds a couple of thousand people at least, and that's not cheap. And there's no idea, you've got no idea how you're going to do that or how you'd run such a thing, because I mean, basically, the good thing is that they've actually asked the Glasgow branches to run the thing, but the actual mechanism is not clear. So I mean, in those terms, there's enormous deficiency. And of course, the problem being, of course, is that it also means that you're by being unable to use that data, you're missing a huge opportunity, because actually what you should be doing is being able to organise people on the ground, in local areas, using that list and so on, and setting the thing up on a local level, in terms of actually setting up organisations on a community basis, rather than I would be in favour of saying I'll organise on the basis of communities and then work on the where we need to work on the basis of lines drawn on the map by the Electoral Commission. Yeah, fine, do that. But the point is the organisation itself, the party, should be in terms of the communities of people that understand and can easily organise from. Thanks.
Okay, now the only other speaker I've got indicating is Eric, who I'm hoping, in addition to what he might want to say now, will offer some sort of resume, conclusion. But first of all, anybody else want to contribute, or have we covered the main criticisms and indeed some of the strengths of the various documentation? Anybody else want to indicate? Nora is indicating this is your last chance. Sounds like bingo, doesn't it? Okay. So Nora.
Yeah, I'm just
wondering.
wondering.
I won't say legs 11 because I've never seen you. I could say that. I should say that to Eric as well.
I just wondered if anybody had any answers to my question about the, what's going to happen in those 4 months. Is that clear in all the documents? Accountability, who's running the show? When do the amendments when do the documents become real and workable and something that we all have to adhere to? That's all.
Right. Thanks, Nora. Well, over to you, Eric, to make a conclusion.
Thanks, Chair. I'll try and answer as well as many of the questions that have been raised, although I won't be able to answer all of them because, unfortunately, nobody at the rank and file level knows the answer to some of these questions. But just to begin, and I apologise if there's a little bit of duplication in the answers. I've got 8 sheets of notes that I've taken from listening to people. I think to answer a point Ian made earlier and Nora's just made, if I just go again to the screen sharing. The document there, if you have a look at the area that's highlighted in yellow and then just look underneath there, that's when it's stating there at the moment it is proposed that between the founding conference and between March at the latest, when the elections for this central executive team is supposed to be concluded, the suggestion is it will be stewarded by the Independent Alliance of MPs. So that is what is being proposed. But I think the question I've got underneath is where Nigel said, who wrote these documents? And I think that again is a key reasonable question for us to ask. We don't actually know. Some of us on this call, Dave, Roger, I think Nora, and apologies if I missed anybody else out on this call, but up until July, August time of this year, we'd been representatives from our different groups on this group called the Collective. And there was groups from all across the country there. There was the Liverpool Independents, there was the For the Many, there was Transform, there was the Social Justice Party, latterly joined by the Birmingham Black Country group. So we did have all these groups meeting online, and we consistently acknowledged that there was some need for sensitivity and secrecy, particularly if people were talking with MPs that were about to leave the Labour Party, such as Zara Sultana. But we consistently argued for more openness, more democracy, and more participation for people to get involved. And unfortunately, since Jeremy and Zara actually announced the co-leadership, that particular group is to all intents and purposes shut down. Now, I don't know who is writing these documents, and I don't know who's running things on a day-to-day basis, because it's never been publicly announced. But it isn't the Independent Alliance group of MPs. I think it's some of the people that have been involved in what was the Collective Secretariat. So now, surely it's time for people to be upfront and transparent. We're upfront and transparent, talking about what we'd like to see. And why aren't the people that are currently at the helm just coming forward and talking? So I think that is a really worrying matter. A very, very quick apology from me. I'll be very quick on this. I apologise if earlier on, when I made the contribution about the political statement, and I made reference to the working group I'm involved in that wanted to add a bit more about the climate, it does mention the climate crisis there that I'm emphasising, that I'm highlighting there. So to be fair, it does mention the climate crisis. What the group I was with actually wanted on this bit, that the party is a democratic, member-led socialist party that stands for peace, equality, social justice, it at all. So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that. The sharing of data that's been mentioned, again, absolutely agree. I can't think of any reason, really, particularly speaking to techies and stuff, why the data, doesn't matter from which portal it was from, why people, if we're organising proto-branch meetings, why somebody couldn't have sent the data out saying, there's a meeting taking place in your area, please go to it. To go to Leslie's point about people working for us and not having a small group of people running the party, absolutely agree. Whether we employ people or whether we democratically elect people to stand in these roles for a couple of years, I'd be interested in a debate on that. I think absolutely what Roger said. We've been arguing for this party. There's been a vacuum. Fantastic news that it is starting to happen. But I'll only emphasise again is that I don't understand why the people currently at the helm have, in effect, pulled up the drawbridge instead of liaising with all these people that want to get involved. We don't want control. We want to build a democratic mass workers' party. And why people won't engage with all that goodwill, all these community groups, and involve them properly, I really don't understand. And that's going to be a question. And the concluding point, really, or penultimate point, is what Roger said about how we could have had a branch-based model. Now, when a person called Josh Virasamy spoke a few weeks ago at the Your Party Connections meeting, Josh was a person that was involved with the inner circle, that was involved with starting to do some of these documents. And Josh said at the meeting, and it wasn't a secret meeting, Josh said the idea of establishing branches first and supporting branches first was suggested. So this top-down model, other people had suggested an alternative. So I think to finish off my concluding remark, which really goes right back to Ian's first question, I think that I hope the way forward for people on this call, people not on this call, is that we are going to align with people from the different blocks that are emerging, that we can come together under a common programme with common demands for democracy, proper elected delegates, and really the key thing now is agreeing the amendments we want to make, but really arguing that we've got to have a robust and transparent process for putting the amendments in. Because as Nora said, I could screen share it now, but I think I've overrun my time. If you have a look at the Your Party official webpage at the moment, the front page, it says that amendments are going to be made by the that are elected by sortition at the conference. That's the only reference it makes. Presumably, the documents we're looking now are going to be changed by assemblies, but that's what it states at the moment. So look forward to working with everybody, and thanks again for the invite and allowing us to open up this discussion tonight.
Okay, thanks very much, Eric. Matt, do you want to come in after that conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we should also ask of comrades here is that can people, I mean, I'm hoping that people will be writing up their experiences in regional assemblies, which are all going to take place in the next few weeks. You know, they're going to be up and down the country. So I think it's going to be quite different in terms of the character of them and the way they're organised and you know, the sort of people that are there and so on. And it'd be really good to see, I mean, if people can actually even write a brief thing, you know, about what happens in their particular regional assembly, or, you know, and their impression of it, and anything that, you know, in terms of, you know, was there a general feeling that you know, in line with what's being said in this meeting. As I've put up our email address, which is, you know, for the Campaign for the Mass Workers Party, which is also on our website. And I'm, you know, hopefully, you know, people can actually produce something on that line. I mean, even if it's a, you know, paragraph or two, I think it'd be really useful. And then I think we can have a discussion subsequently about what the sort of what's been happening. And you know, in terms of, you know, a campaign for democracy in your party. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Right, I'd like to thank everybody for coming and everybody for their contributions. This meeting has been organised. Oh, hang on. Oh, sorry, my screen disappeared. Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. This meeting has been organised by the Campaign for a Mass Workers Party. You can find us if you search for us, find us online. We've got a Facebook and we've got a URL. And as Matt has just said, if you send us in your recollections, your reactions to, your hopes for, your fears about, and the level of enthusiasm, etc., of your local meetings, then please send them in to the Campaign for a Mass Workers Party. We will be holding another one of these national Zooms. We'll let everyone who's here know about that. I just want to end up on really to repeat, I'm not going to repeat all the excellent points that comrades have made during this meeting. Excellent points, really useful. But I do want to just make one point, and that is that we do have a wonderful opportunity before us. We do have a fantastic opportunity to get a socialist party to the left of Labour, a mass workers' party. We had 800,000 people and then 20,000 people for Zahra Sultana. There is a thirst, there is a need, there is a desire for such a party. And what we have to do, our role, comrades, is to make sure that it is transparent, that it is member-led, that it is not top-down, and that it is socialist. So thank you very much for your attendance tonight, comrades, and we'll see you at the next meeting. I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you, Chair. Well, Chair. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thanks, comrades.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, everyone.